It was 11:47 p.m. when tensions split the control tower of Aerocon's global navigation hub in Houston like a thunderclap. Red warning lights flared along every wall. Dozens of radar screens flickered, displaying chaotic arcs and blinking alerts. A sudden cascade of errors rippled through the mainframe, and in the heart of the operations floor, over 50 air traffic and aerospace engineers stood frozen around the central AI terminal. This was the brain of the Unified Aerospace Routing System, a trillion-dollar project meant to automate global flight coordination using real-time AI and orbital satellite data. It was hailed as the future of aviation, a system trained on decades of weather trajectory and airspace logistics. A system that right now was seconds away from total collapse. Across 5 continents, over 200 passenger flights were in the air, many relying solely on the Aerocon system for routing and altitude control. And now the AI's neural response had gone haywire, misreading altitude vectors, duplicating aircraft positions, even attempting to reroute jets through restricted orbital zones. "We're losing primary synchronization," one technician shouted. "Signal distortion from Layer 3 repeater system thinks the Earth is curving backward," another cried. The engineers' brilliant minds from Caltech, Oxford, and JAXA scrambled. Some rewrote code on the fly, others pulled backup satellites offline, but nothing worked. The culprit was buried somewhere deep in the quantum learning layer. The AI was not just making mistakes, it was teaching itself the wrong math. Worse still, in less than 2 hours, the system was scheduled to go fully live with a ceremonial handover broadcast to heads of state and aerospace investors worldwide. A glitch now wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be catastrophic. From behind a smoked glass observation wall, Dr. Anika Voss, director of aerospace systems, stood silent and a womb. "Now, this AI is folding in on itself," someone whispered, and in the shadows of this chaos down 2 floors and behind a mop bucket in the maintenance hallway, a woman in gray coveralls paused mid-wipe. She wasn't shouting, she wasn't coding, but her eyes were locked on a small wall display where flight path data scrolled by in erratic, impossible patterns. Her name was Evelyn Brooks. She was the night janitor, and she had just spotted a mistake that no one else could see. Evelyn Brooks didn't speak much on the job. She arrived each night at 10 p.m. sharp, pushing her mop cart through the side entrance of Aerocon's complex. She clocked in, quietly nodded to security, and disappeared into the steel and glass maze of the Aerospace Nerve Center. No one asked her name. No one remembered her face. She was the ghost in the hallways, the one who cleaned up coffee spills, wiped down touchscreens, and emptied the trash behind those who charted the future of aviation. At 49, Evelyn wore tired eyes, calloused hands, and a bun of gray-streaked hair always tucked beneath a cap. Most nights, her only conversations were with the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional late-night drone passing overhead. But Evelyn wasn't always invisible. Years ago, she'd been a prodigy, a mathematical savant from rural Indiana solving complex theorems at 13, offered early admission to MIT. Her future was supposed to be inked in journals and algorithms. Then her son was born. Doctors said he would never speak, that he would never walk without help. Her husband left before the first birthday, so Evelyn dropped out. She worked nights and taught herself by day, learning tensor calculus while cooking soup, diagramming spatial logic on the back of grocery receipts. Not for degrees, not for prestige, for her boy. Tonight she was supposed to clean, but her mop was still. Her eyes tracked the data flickering on the small screen in the hallway, one of the redundant displays mounted for safety compliance. She noticed something odd: altitude arcs that bent wrong, timestamps skipping by fractions. The AI's routing model wasn't just glitching, it was running under an outdated curvature matrix. A small shift in planetary variance had created an echo in orbital calculations, one the AI hadn't accounted for. It was spiraling, quietly, fatally. Evelyn's brow furrowed. She stepped closer. A dry erase board in the operations bullpen still had a partial model scrawled across it. She studied it through the glass. They'd assumed Earth's geodesic curve matched the model from 7 years ago. It didn't. And now planes were being routed along paths that shouldn't even exist. Her heart thudded. She shouldn't intervene. This wasn't her world. Not anymore. But the mistake was real and growing. And she knew if she didn't speak now, something terrible would happen. She looked down at her ID badge dangling from a plastic lanyard. Janitor, night shift, no clearance, no voice. Still, she turned her card aside, wiped her hands on her pant leg, and made for the stairwell. 2 levels up the control room boiled with panic. She could already hear the shouting, but Evelyn didn't flinch. For the first time in years, she wasn't just a shadow in the hallway. She was walking straight into the storm. The control floor was chaos. Voices clashed over one another. Reboot the orbital nodes, pull the Lagrange satellite stack offline, override the AI's self-reinforcement loop. No one noticed Evelyn slip through the side door. She didn't storm in. She didn't raise her voice. She just stood quietly gripping her badge, blinking against the blue glare of monitors. An analyst spotted her. "Ma'am, this is a secure zone. You can't be here." She nodded once. "I know, I saw the flight data from the lower deck. The variance curve, it's wrong." Everyone froze, heads turned. The room didn't go silent exactly, it just shifted. Disbelief thickened the air. What the lead systems engineer said sharply. He was tall, lean, with the hollow exhaustion of someone who hadn't blinked in 2 hours. Evelyn stepped forward. "You're running the trajectory optimizer based on a 2018 geodesic curvature matrix. But Earth's mass distribution changed marginally, enough to throw off orbital sinking." She pointed to the real-time models. Every second, the AI's extrapolating with faulty base vectors. That's why the aircraft positions are doubling. It's duplicating decisions mid-loop. It's not a software bug. It's a false mathematical premise. A pause, then a scoff. "That's impossible," one of the programmers muttered. But another tech younger curious leaned in toward his terminal. Wait a second." His fingers raced over the keys, overlaying Evelyn's assumption onto the live stream. The display shimmered. Flashing alerts dropped. Pathways recalibrated. The red flight overlaps turned green. A collective breath filled the room. The error rate dropped by 83% in 12 seconds. The room didn't cheer. Not yet. They just stared first at the screen, then at the woman who'd spoken like she'd been part of the project for years. Behind the glass, Dr. Nika Voss lowered her hands from behind her back. She leaned toward the intercom. "What's your name?" she asked, calm and precise. "Evelyn," the woman said, her voice steady now. "Evelyn Brooks, you work in janitorial." "Yes, ma'am, and you're the only one who spotted this. I wasn't trying to interfere," Evelyn said quickly. "But I used to study geodesic math. My son's nonverbal. I used it to help model visual communication patterns. I recognized the curve immediately." The lead engineer shook his head slowly, still watching the stabilizing data. One of the analysts whispered, "She just stabilized half the northern airspace in under a minute." Anika didn't move. She simply said, "Stay right there." Evelyn blinked. Her hands tightened around the strap of her badge. She was still wearing cleaning gloves, still smelled faintly of ammonia. But for the first time in decades, she wasn't just cleaning around genius. She was the genius. "Give her a terminal," Dr. Voss said. The room hesitated. One of the engineers, middle-aged Harvard-trained, gave a sharp shake of his head. "With all due respect, we can't just let someone." She stabilized the vector stack, the younger tech cut in. "With her mouth. No access, no credentials." And she was right. Another beat passed. Then slowly one workstation slid aside. Evelyn stepped forward. She moved like someone used to being unseen, small steps, cautious hands, a breath held too long. But when her fingers touched the keys, they moved with quiet authority. The interface flickered awake. Evelyn didn't hesitate. Her hands danced over the terminal, bypassing the GUI, jumping straight into diagnostic code. She rewrote the curvature coefficient, manually adjusted the harmonic oscillation model for tropospheric shifts, and patched the AI's predictive routing subroutine with an old-fashioned constraint common sense. Silence fell. The main display changed, projected air paths realigned, altitude conflicts vanished, fuel optimization recalculated, communication lag smoothed out in real time. Across the wall of screens, all 200-plus flights began shifting clean, stable, clear. One by one, green lights replaced red. Gasps echoed. Someone actually said, "Holy hell!" The lead engineer stared at the cascading updates. She's not patching, she's rewriting the logic framework. From scratch. Evelyn didn't look up. Her brow furrowed. "You're still bleeding signal through the South Atlantic feed. The relay satellite's compensating wrong. I can write a cap limiter to throttle that if you want." Dr. Voss stepped through the door at last. Not through the glass, into the room. She approached slowly, stopped beside Evelyn's chair. "You were supposed to be mopping floors tonight," she said. Evelyn paused, finally, looking up. "I'll still mop if you need me to." That made one of the analysts laugh under his breath. Voss didn't smile, but her voice softened. "How long would it take you to finish your degree?" Evelyn blinked. "Years, if I could afford it." "You can now," Voss said, "if you want it, but that's not why I'm here." A quiet passed electric. "You just corrected the most advanced aerospace AI on Earth," Voss said. "You've done in 10 minutes what our team hasn't done in 3 years. You think I'm a fluke? I think you're a mirror," Voss replied. "You reflect what we missed. Not because you studied the system, but because you see differently, and that's what real systems need." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I don't know what to say. Say yes?" A long silence. Then Evelyn removed her gloves, stood slowly, looked around the room at the people who had just watched her rewire the sky, and she nodded once. Yes. The next morning, Evelyn returned to the building, not through the maintenance entrance, not pushing a mop. This time, she walked through the main lobby of Aerocon's systems wing wearing a borrowed blazer 2 sizes too big and clutching a manila folder that held nothing but a high school transcript and a 20-year-old math competition certificate. It was all she had, but the receptionist already knew her name. "Dr. Voss is expecting you." By noon, Evelyn had an official badge. Systems analyst, provisional appointment. It still didn't feel real. The engineers who had once dismissed her now nodded as she passed, some with cautious curiosity, others with genuine respect. The younger ones asked questions. The older ones listened more than they spoke. No one laughed. They gave her a desk near the AI integration cluster. It wasn't much, just a screen, a chair, a terminal, but it was hers. That night, Evelyn sat in her new space long after most others had gone home. Her screen glowed softly as she combed through legacy code buried beneath the satellite routing modules. She flagged dozens of redundancies, suggested 5 improvements, and wrote a note. "Consider testing with live weather perturbation." She didn't sign her name. She didn't have to. Dr. Voss stopped by before leaving. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You settling in?" Evelyn nodded. "Still feels like I dreamed it. You earned it. We didn't give you anything." "I'm not sure I belong here." Voss tilted her head. "You rewired our logic engine on instinct. You taught yourself orbital math. And you stabilized global air traffic with a borrowed keyboard. If that's not belonging, I don't know what is." Evelyn looked down. Her hands still bore the pale marks of years spent scrubbing, lifting, pushing. "I still clean," she said softly. "At home, at night, my son needs structure." then build him the sky you stabilized. A silence passed warm this time. No tension, just two women, one at her beginning, the other helping her step through the doorway. I'll keep showing up, Evelyn said. That's all brilliance really is, Voss replied. Persistence disguised as genius. She left. Evelyn turned back to her screen. A green line blinked in the corner live satellite feed. This time it was steady. She placed her badge gently beside the keyboard and exhaled. One night ago, she was invisible. Now she was writing the future. 3 months passed. Evelyn Brooks was no longer a provisional analyst. Her badge now read Systems Architect, Orbital AI Division. She still arrived early, still brought her own coffee in a dented thermos, and still wore shoes with soles worn from years of quiet walking. But in meeting rooms now, when she spoke, people listened. When she wrote ideas on the board, no one erased them. Her redesign of the trajectory matrix didn't just fix a bug. It revolutionized how the system read real-time geospatial change. She introduced a variable elasticity coefficient that let the AI adapt to gravitational shifts caused by tectonic drift and seasonal ocean mass shifts. Things no one had ever even thought to include. And it worked. Flight efficiency went up by 6.7%. Fuel burn dropped worldwide. 2 airlines credited her algorithm for cutting transatlantic delays by 42 minutes on average. But Evelyn never asked for credit. She still clocked out by 6 p.m. to get home in time to cook dinner for her son Matthew. Still read to him at bedtime using pages she printed out from aerospace textbooks. He couldn't speak, but he always smiled when she said the word sky. Then one morning, an invitation arrived. Zurich, Global Aerospace Innovation Forum. Dr. Voss had submitted Evelyn's curvature adaptation without telling her. You want me to go speak? Evelyn blinked. You didn't just save flights, Voss said. You changed how the system sees the Earth. But I'm not a public person. You're a symbol, Evelyn, and people like you, people who are overlooked, underestimated, invisible, they need to see what's possible. Evelyn went. She wore the same blazer, had the sleeves shortened. She didn't know how to do stage makeup. She didn't need to. Her talk wasn't flashy. She spoke quietly, clearly, about math, mistakes, and mops, about seeing the flaw that no one else could see, not because she was smarter, but because she was looking from a different angle. The hall was silent when she finished. Then it stood. Every person, standing. Her photo went viral. The janitor who grounded the skies. Schools began calling. Girls from underfunded neighborhoods wrote letters asking how they could be like her. She started answering them one by one. Until Dr. Voss approached again. We've had a proposal sitting for years, she said. A STEM initiative for working-class women. Women with kids. Women over 40. You want me to endorse it? Evelyn asked. I want you to lead it, Evelyn paused. The silence was heavier than usual. I never imagined this life. No one imagined you, Voss said. You built this life out of pieces no one else even saw. That night, Evelyn went home and added a new line to the whiteboard calendar above her son's bed. Monday, design flight algorithms. Tuesday, cook spaghetti. Wednesday, launch a national education program. Just another week. 1 year later, Evelyn Brooks stood in the auditorium of a high school in Newark, New Jersey. The walls were faded. The air smelled faintly of bleach and old paint. But the seats were full. Teenagers, mothers, women in work boots and scrubs, girls in hoodies and hijabs, all of them watching the woman who once mopped floors beneath blinking aerospace terminals. Evelyn adjusted the mic. Her notes were folded in her jacket pocket, untouched. I used to clean buildings like this, she began. Then one night I saw something broken, and I fixed it. That's all. That's how it started. A pause. The room held its breath. You don't need to be invited to matter. You don't need permission to notice something no one else does. Applause rippled, soft at first, then building. Afterward, a young girl approached. Maybe 16, nervous. My mom works night shifts, she said. She always wanted to study engineering, but life got in the way. Evelyn smiled. Tell her it's not too late. Tell her I said so. That month, Evelyn's initiative Groundwalk opened its fifth pilot program, part-time aerospace and data science tracks fully funded with childcare stipends and evening hours. Enrollment flooded in from places policymakers had long forgotten. And back at AeroCon, Evelyn wasn't just writing code anymore. She sat on the advisory board. She helped rewrite onboarding protocols to include candidates without traditional degrees. She mentored interns who wore dollar store shoes and brought their lunches in plastic bags. People started calling her a symbol. Evelyn never liked that word. I'm not a symbol, she once said to a news anchor. I'm proof. One evening, she received a letter, handwritten. It came from a women's shelter in Kansas City. Inside was a photo, 3 women in navy blue coveralls holding printed certificates. One of them had written on the back, "We didn't know we could belong in this world. Then we saw you. Now we're here." Evelyn sat with the photo for a long time. She didn't cry. But she did something she hadn't done in years. She took a thumbtack and pinned it above her desk. Right beside a hand-drawn picture her son had made of Mom flying a rocket. At the bottom, in uneven letters he had typed himself, it read, "You make sky safe." 3 years later, Evelyn Brooks stood on the edge of a mountaintop in northern Chile. The air was thin. The wind whispered through the canyons. Below her, nestled between red rock and cloud-shadowed valleys, sat a school. Brand new. White walls, blue roofs, solar-paneled. Inside, a generator hummed quietly, the first orbital-guided hybrid energy unit in South America, powered by the same routing algorithms she had once written in the half-light of a janitor's hallway. Electric light flickered on in a classroom window. For the first time in its history, the village below would hold night classes. A little girl in a sun-bleached school uniform ran up the slope toward her. Her cheeks were flushed hair tangled from the wind. In her hand, she held a tablet. "Senora Evelyn," she said in careful English, "is this you?" She turned the screen. There was a photo of Evelyn standing at a podium, smiling awkwardly, her hand resting beside a global flight map. "It is," Evelyn said, her voice soft. The girl hesitated. "You used to clean buildings, I did. Now you fix satellites." Evelyn laughed. "Sometimes." The girl's brow furrowed. "Can I be like you?" Evelyn knelt down, looked her in the eye. "You already are." That night, as stars spilled across the sky, Evelyn sat beside the satellite console inside the school. She watched the numbers scroll, stable, clear, perfect. Planes flying safely, lights turning on, data lines pulsing like quiet heartbeats across the world. Her son was older now, taller than her. He sent her a video that morning, him tapping on a keyboard, smiling as a weather balloon he'd helped launch floated up past the trees. It made her eyes sting. Dr. Voss had retired. Evelyn now mentored her replacement. She still refused the corner office. "I work better near the code," she always said. Her name appeared in aerospace textbooks. Her life inspired a documentary. But the title she loved most remained the simplest: Mom. She stepped outside, wrapping her shawl tighter. The mountain was silent except for the wind. A light flicked on in the valley far below. She remembered the first time she walked through that glass door, still wearing gloves, still unsure if speaking up had been a mistake. Now she was building doorways for others. As she looked out across the night, Evelyn whispered something not meant for microphones or stages, just for herself. The sky was never out of reach. We were just told to look down. And then she smiled. Not the nervous kind, not the quiet kind, but the kind that belongs to someone who finally knows. She didn't just stabilize an algorithm. She realigned the trajectory of lives.